everybody, it's Aaron again, and welcome back to Lloyd's Comics and Collectibles. And today on the episode, we're going to cover one of my favorite television shows from my childhood. Television show, animated series, whatever you call it, Beast Wars. So, Beast Wars aired way back in 1996. And it was the first television series that really followed the original G1 Transformers. And that's kind of something to bear in mind, like when you read about it online, because it was at a point that it was having to cater to older fans, and was still trying to grab kids of the 90s at the time, who would become the next generation of fans. And it ran till May 7th, 1999, and it was produced by Mainframe Entertainment. And the reason I thought this was cool when I was watching it is there was another animated series that, I don't know what all channels it ran on, because I seem to think I saw it before Toonami, but I remember watching it a lot on Toonami, was Reboot. And it's made by the same company and is actually a couple of years older than Beast Wars. And the big way Beast Wars varied from its G1 predecessor was this show was completely CGI animated, which was something at the time, and I'll say 96, because that's when it aired, that we hadn't seen yet. Like you'd see some, I'll say I don't really remember movies back then. I like movies, but I don't remember movies like I do animated series or other things. There's probably some CG stuff here and there, but we'd never seen anything that was just like the whole thing is computer animated. So that was really cool for the time, and it also had a very extensive toy line. I remember, again, as a kid, I think I had a $5 a week allowance, and I'd go in there, and they'd have the basic, I think they're called the basics, or they're probably just called Beast Wars. The smaller ones were like $5, and then the deluxes were like $10, and then they had some that were in like a red dinosaur themed box, like the if you Google it, you'll know I'm talking about. Had like a dinosaur eye and everything. And those were like the more expensive. They're like 24, 20 something. Maybe even 30 or 40 back then. I don't think so. 30, 40 back then seems expensive. But I just remember going in there and then with my grandma and looking at them and like, man, do I get a smaller one now, or do I hold on to my money and get a deluxe? We're here to talk about the show, not the toys. Even though that was like the best part. The series was great, but as a kid, you really enjoy the toys. And it had a sequel called Beast Machines that ran from, let me look at my notes here, September 18th of 1999 to November 18th, 2000. And I just remember as a kid not really liking this series. And it's been so long since I've seen it, and since I didn't really like it, I think it was something with the way the robots were designed. Seems just to stick out, like the animation style sticks out in my head. Is the reason why. But I kind of have planned, because I want to, get more involved in Transformers. After like Beast Wars, going back and watching that one. And then there were 2 prequel series and a movie, or not prequel, a spin-off series and a movie that I think are animes in Japan. Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo and Beast Wars 2 the movie. I have not seen those. I think I've seen some clips. So those will be really fun to get to, something I've never seen. But I'm going to get to that after we cover, seasons 2 and 3 of Beast Wars. But the story, okay, in these reviews, guys, and if you go to the site, maybe this will help explain some stuff, because I didn't want to type out a paragraph explaining the review in the review itself, because it was already like a page and a half, and I felt like that was too long. When I talk about the story, I'm going to try to find the core thread of everything and give you a general overview of that. And there's going to be a point in this video, which I'm telling you, if you have not seen the season and you want to go see it, cut the video off, because I want to cover the last couple episodes. But usually when I do a review, I don't want to tell you everything about the show, because then there's no point in you watching it, because you've heard everything. So I'll give you the backbone of the, like a big part of the, not the big part, but the main, let's say the main baddie for the season. And in vague terms until the end, I might cover the last couple episodes, but I'll warn you guys, so if you want to go see it, you'll kind of have an idea what's going to happen, but it'll still be kind of new to you. So with that long explanation out of the way, let's get to talking about the series. So season 1 starts off that Megatron, and no, not that Megatron, this is a different Megatron, because we find out that the time period of Beast Wars is 300 years after the Great War, or say after Gen 1. So Megatron has stolen the Golden Disc, which is a Cybertronian artifact. And as he's fleeing, only one Maximal, which is, to cover that real quick, the baddies in this are called Predacons. They're the descendants of the Decepticons. And the descendants of the Autobots are the Maximals. I can't believe I almost forgot Autobots, for Christ's sake. Anyway, and there's only one Maximal exploration ship that can catch them. So they take off after, and they go into warp. And the series really starts with them coming out of warp, which the Maximal ship is piloted, or captain, not piloted, captain, because there's a crew, by Optimus Primal. So that's one thing that sort of cracked me up is, man, these names sound familiar. So they're coming into this new generation, but their two main protagonists are still, or their protagonists and antagonists, correct terminology, are still named essentially the same thing. Megatron is different, but it's spelled exactly the same and pronounced the same. And the good guy is Optimus Primal instead of Optimus Prime. Anyway, they come out of warp. They're blasting and fighting each other back and forth to the point that they both take extensive damage, and they start plummeting through the alien planet's atmosphere. And as a last ditch effort to keep the rest of his crew, who are sleeping safe, he jettisons the pods into orbit over the planet. And it never really says this in the show, but I guess they were on like a long-range exploration thing, because the pods are essentially protoforms, and you find this out in a later episode that they're unformed Transformers, I guess. I don't know if they're in stasis, so when they go in here, they're put in stasis and then they're woken up and they're reconstructed. The reason I say this is the first one you see up close is it's like a vague humanoid shape, but it's like liquid metal and the sparks in the middle, and then it scans for life forms and then makes the Transformer. Anyway, it's important because that's how they introduce new characters throughout the season, but that's not where we're at right now. So they're plummeted towards the planet. Optimus says jettison the pods into safe orbit. All these pods shoot out of the back of the good guy ship and they're in orbit. And they crash to the planet. And then they start assessing the situation. And as they're crashing on an alien planet, it's not bad enough. They discover that, well, they might have known this, but this is the first time they tell us this, is that their warp technology can also allow them to travel through time. So it's not also a question of where they are, but when. So they're sitting there trying to figure out, get everything together. What's the ship look like? Where are we? And they discover the planet they landed on is just chock-a-block full of energon. Which, so much so, and raw energon, that if they go outside the ship for an extended period of time, it'll start to fry their circuits and it'll go into stasis lock. Which, I might get to it. This is not in the written one, but I might get into talking about stasis lock when we get to the end of this. So they decide to scan for local life forms, and they'll take the forms of those life forms to shield them from the energon. So they scan, and that's how they basically get all their beast forms. Because in the first season, I can say, and I mean, I'm trying to think, is there any? From what I remember, at no point in the season, there's no Transformer that is, well, no, there is one. There is one. I won't say who and what because it gives things away. 90% of the Transformers in this are animal themed. Because it's Beast Wars, go figure. So they all scan these life forms, and they get their forms to protect them when they go outside from the energon. Well, you know, oh, this is bad enough, and you'd think, well, man, we got to survive on an alien planet. They don't know where we are. They don't know when we are. We don't know when they'll get here. But leave it to the good old baddies, the Predacons, to be squabbling amongst themselves while trying to figure all this out. And Megatron sees all this Energon, and he sees it as an opportunity because in one of the episodes you see evidently Energon can supercharge them, but it was unstable, so it had negative side effects. So I don't know if when it's been also seen Gen 1. I don't know if it's refined, if it can sustain those buffed effects. It doesn't ever really say in Season 1. But if he gets a hold of all this Energon, he can go back and start the Great War again and conquer the galaxy, and he's all about that. But Dinobot, who is... It doesn't really give his rank in the Predacons. So it's one of the Predacons Dinobot sees it as just... This guy's crazy. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's an incompetent leader, and he challenges him to for the leadership of the Predacons by combat. And it's really cool because you're like, oh man, they're going to throw down, right? And Megatron goes, well, that's all, you know, that's all good, Dinobot, and you know, but there's more to leadership than courage, such as cunning. And then he steps out of the way, and his lieutenant Scorponok shoots Dinobot with a missile. But don't worry, guys. Dinobot will be okay. And he'll end up finding a home with the Maximals. You can go... So far, most of the... no, what I'm going to cover next is a little bit further in the season. But most of this is... first episode and a half, 2 episodes. Because I wanted to... I believe in most animated things, you give it... I think 3 is a good number. 3 episodes to sort of grab you. Because they've got to set... the background, like who are these people, where are we at, what are their motives, and what are they doing. And that usually takes a couple episodes. So usually about the 3rd episode, for most time we need to be getting into something. So this is like the first episode and a half, 2 episodes. But you know, Dinobot will be fine. He ends up finding a place with the Maximals. Now, we've got the Maximals as good guys, Predacons bad guys. There's this 3rd faction that sort of prevails, I guess is the... No, well, we'll say they're just in the season. And they don't really ever speak. You know, there's just hints, like a Stonehenge structure that they find in one episode, and Rhinox, you know, is like, man, that's weird, because it's way too advanced to be made by any of the primitive life forms on this planet. And we know we didn't make it. And we know the Predacons didn't make it, essentially because they just got there. So they're like, we know we didn't do it. So that's kind of odd. And then there's a couple of other things that hint to this 3rd faction throughout the first season, called the Aliens. And it's kind of a cool way to do it, because it'll be like, oh, the Stonehenge structure. And then you'll go X amount of episodes dealing with them just dealing with the day-to-day of the Maximals trying to stop the Predacons, Predatons trying to destroy the Maximals, and just surviving on the planet. And then they'll drop another hint to this 3rd alien faction, and then there's another one a couple episodes later. They're very much so a silent protagonist, and they just seem to be watching. And a couple people like remark, like I think Rat Trap points out in an episode, like, this is a test. And you know, Optimus brings up the point that, like, man, we're not necessarily making the best of impressions, because every time they see us, we're destroying something because we're fighting the Predacons. So they're just this silent faction that they're always posing the question, what do they think? And they're obviously very advanced. They're just things you find out through the first season. They're very advanced. Like, they have advanced tech and weapons. So there's just that prevailing theme through the first scene, like, who are these people, or what is this race, and what do they want? All the time, you know, the usual squabbling between the Maximals and the Predacons. And they do a real good job of just making you wonder what's going on. And this is the point of the video, guys. Like I said, I talk in sort of vague terms, not giving you details on what's going on, so you can go enjoy the story. from here on in the video, if you don't want to know anything about the end of the season, because this is the last 3 or 4 episodes, cut it off now. Go watch it online. I watched it on Tubi, which is a free thing, kind of like Netflix, or you can buy the whole set on Amazon for like $50. But if you don't want to have the ending talked about, or I guess spoiled, stop. Do not. You've been warned, because I'm going to talk about it. So cut it off now. Otherwise, you're going to have to deal with it. So, again, silent protagonist that we don't really know, or antagonist we don't really know much about till the end of the first season. Because they generate this dome that traps Airazor, which is one of the newer Transformers, and Optimus inside. Optimus goes in and gets her, and they scan Optimus and talk to Optimus. And he's like, and unlike the Predacons who see all this alien tech as a weapon they can use, the Maximals are kind of like, if they're mad, we understand why, because of how we've sort of portrayed ourselves, and we just want to talk. Well, this alien being explains to him that all they've done is contaminate their experiment, and there's nothing to be done for the experiment but to sterilize the experiment. And sterilize is a fancy way of saying just going to wipe it clean, kill everything. I don't know if they start over, but just wipe everything clean, start over, because you guys are contaminated. Of course, Optimus doesn't want this because there's animal life forms on the planet and all that sort of thing. There's innocent people involved, that it's not fair to torch the whole planet because of the war between the Maximals and the Predacons. But the alien basically tells them, we don't care. It's too late. That's what's going to happen. So one of the moons on this planet turns into a gigantic death beam, and I guess starts microwaving the planet, kind of. It's weird. They have plenty of time, but it's sort of depicted that they're covered in a beam that is going to destroy the planet in like 30 minutes. So at this point, you're like, well, we're just screwed, right? Like, there's nothing we can do about it. But turns out, both Megatron and Tarantulas sort of knew this was coming, and Tarantulas had a plan to steal one of the Maximal stasis pods and use a power source from their ship to escape. So he goes to steal one of the pods from the Maximal base and gets caught, and then Optimus asks Black Arachnia, like, what was the plan? And Black Arachnia is one of the new Decepticons they get from the Maximal space pods, or the Maximal pods in orbit. So she explains that his whole plan, he was going to escape the planet. And Optimus goes, well, wait a minute. If I fly this thing on a collision course with the alien weapon and eject but trigger, I think it's like a warp explosion, it might be enough to destroy the alien weapon and save the planet. So Optimus gets Black Arachnia to finish the programming of the pod, so to respond to him, gets in the pod, flies like the great hero he is towards the alien weapon. But see, being the ultimate opportunist and the ultimate conniving bad guy that Megatron is, he had known about that all this was going to happen, and saw Tarantulas take the pod and used Tarantulas' programming to give him a back door into the pod. And when Optimus is supposed to eject, Megatron locks the pod, gloats to him to his face as he goes careening into the alien weapon, and the pod explodes. But thankfully, the plan worked. The alien weapon's destroyed, the planet is safe. But you can't help but wonder at what cost, because now the Maximals don't have their fearless leader. And, what are they going to do? I mean, is it over? Because without a leader, how are they going to handle, Megatron and all his plans to conquer the galaxy? And that's where they leave us at Season 1. And if you want to know what happens, you're going to have to watch Season 2. And I'm going to do a review of Season 2. It might be a little bit shorter because I'll probably cut off the lead-in stuff of, the dates of when it aired and stuff, because I'm assuming if you've come to the second season review, you've read the first, because I don't know why you would start on the second season. But we'll have to wait and see what happens to our Intrepid heroes. Now, this is the part where I talk to you what I think about the series. I like to give you the gist of what happens and then talk more about what I think about the series I guess from a technical standpoint, it's the right wording. Technical standpoint. Again, as I said, part of my childhood, this brings back memories. And just like I said, it took me back and like, man, I went, oh, dude, I remember CGI. And, you know, they didn't do this kind of thing back then. But that said, the CGI is a little dated. Like, it's, you know, handheld gaming consoles have better CGI than this did. But it was the first of its kind, and it's still cool to see because it was different. So, you know, you're not gonna be wowed by the CGI. But again, this was 1996 CGI, so I mean, bear that in mind. But it's a good series that has a lot of character development, especially for the Maximals, because you have Dinobot, who's a raptor, because I didn't really want to go over everybody's form. Dinobot's a raptor, and then there's Rat Trap, who's a rat, and they really sort of quarrel with each other, because I'm not stereotyping people, but Rat Trap makes me think of a feisty, like, New Yorker, the way he talks. He always speaks his mind, irregardless if it's, you know, and doesn't really sugarcoat anything. So him and Dinobot are always quarreling, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my god, the first chance these guys get, one of them's going to kill the other. But somehow it always works out when they work together, and they kind of respect each other. They would just never outwardly say it. You're not going to get a bro hug between these guys. And they got Cheetor, who I think is for the kids, because a lot of these shows back then had like this young upstart. Sorry for in the background, guys. The pupper's in the kennel because no one's home but me, and she's not happy about it. But Cheetor's the upstart young crew member who is always sort of brash and quick to do things, and he makes quite a few mistakes through the season. So I always felt like he was sort of the character for the kids to identify with, because, you know, when you're younger, you're trying to prove yourself to your parents and other people, and that you're an adult and that you can do things. So it's all those sorts of things that you get with the Maximal characters. And the Predacons, on the flip side, they have character. They are characters. They have very distinct things that make them individual in that respect. Like, one of my favorites is Waspinator. He's kind of the fall guy for everything. Probably him and Pterosaur are the two fall guys. Waspinator's a wasp, Pterosaur's a pterodactyl, or some form of a pterodactyl. It may not actually be a pterodactyl, because there's a lot of dinosaurs that look like pterodactyls. But Waspinator's always the fall guy, and he has this sort of way of talking and he's always murmuring and monologuing to himself, and it just cracks me up. Tarantulas is a scheming spider. Brachyarachnia is the first female Transformer that we get in this series, and she's a Black Widow, and she's conniving like tarantulas, but also seems to be more of like a hand-to-hand fighter. And one of my favorites that's introduced in the later part of the season is Inferno. He's I'm assuming a fire ant. I'm not knowledgeable on bugs. I could not look at a bug like an ant and go, that's a fire ant or a regular ant. But he has a flamethrower, so I'm assuming he's supposed to be a fire ant, and he's named Inferno. And in his episode, his logic circuits are damaged, so he thinks he's an ant, and he's protecting his pod as a colony, and it gets blown up. But he always refers to Megatron after becoming a Predacon as the royalty and queen, and my queen. And it's funny because he'll go, my queen, and then Megatron goes, I really wish he'd stop calling me that. It's great. It's one of my favorite things in the show. And probably my other favorite thing that is like a bad guy tick is Megatron talks to himself. He'll have a whole like sentence of like, this is my grandiose plan, and he'll go, yes, and it just cracks me up because he's talking to himself. And at one point, Blachyarachnia goes, why do you always talk to yourself? And he goes, because I have a penchant for intelligent conversation. And I just think it's great, so I always remember that. And when I was watching this, I'd be talking to my friends, I'd go, yeah, let's go to B. Yes, like, what are you doing? Like, Megatron from Beast Wars, man, come on. But so they have character, and I wanted to find character different from like character development. There's things that make them characters, but they're very one note. They're always conniving against each other and trying to get power and trying to lead the Predacons. and they're always trying to be bad guys and destroy the Maximals. And I think that's a bit of like, hey man, this is a children's cartoon. We'll give the good guys like depth and character development, and the bad guys, they will just be bad guys, and their plans always fall apart because they never quite work together and they're conniving. And it's, as an adult, it's a shame, because my favorite kind of bad guys are the ones that, yes, they're bad guys, but they kind of have a point. Like, you can sympathize with them. Sometimes a bad guy that is just a bad guy because he's bad, and I know I said bad 3 times, but just to emphasize somehow how basic this gets, lacks a little bit of something. But again, like I said, it's a kid's show. It was a kid's show. Aired on, I think, Fox. Maybe UPN, I can't remember. So maybe they're like, we'll give the good guys character development and we'll keep the bad guys kind of simple for the kids. So maybe that was the thought process there. But another thing that I will tout it for is, and this is something I think we don't get a lot of in cartoons nowadays, because like cartoons are perceived to be solely for children. Back when I was coming up in the 90s, there was a balance of like very obvious child-based humor, like the Squash and Stretch cartoon, shtick, but they would put adult references sort of in cartoons that the kids would never pick up on, but the parents would, because they knew that, this was Saturday morning cartoons or after school cartoons. I won't say Beast Wars for me, I watched it on Saturday mornings. I don't think it ran during the week. So, they had a little bit of something in there for the adults. And, the character development, that's in there for the adults. And there's some veiled adult-esque humor that's not super raunchy, but like parents will get a chuckle at and kids can enjoy. And I thought that was really cool, because, like I said, I don't think that happens as much these days. Like, I think people just say cartoons are for kids, so there's nothing added to sort of, make the parents pop. So I always think that's cool. And again, it's a good series. It's serious at times. It's got comedy at times. I will admit, sometimes in episodes I felt like they were pushing the comedy a bit too hard. But then again, I have to go, this is blatantly a children's cartoon, so children's cartoon from the 90s, so I can't really fault it for that. But it is something that really holds a special place in my heart. Like, I vividly remember things about this series and the toys and wanting Tiger Chomp, but can never find him in the stores, even though he was pretty much just a repaint of Cheetor. Playing with Cheetor in the bathtub at my grandma's, and that might be a weird story, but one of Cheetor's guns on the toy, it's the one that he uses the most in the show, has a squeeze back, so you squeeze it, fill it up like a water gun, and then squeeze it to shoot. So I always played with him in the bathtub. So it's something that's very special to me, and I recommend this series if you've never seen it. Like, it has enough references to Gen 1 that I think if you're a Transformers fan, you'll like the references. And so I'd like to think you would enjoy it coming into it if you hadn't seen it. I can't say for sure, because it's also nostalgia for me. But I think it was a key point in Transformers that made a whole new generation of fans, and I think it's proven by the fact that they released a 10-year anniversary set. There's an anniversary set they released where they re-released the figures. So that means you had to do something right. The years after the fact, they re-released the figures. That has to mean your franchise did something. And, I'd recommend it also if, maybe you've got some kids around the house and, like, you want to introduce them to something that's, kid-friendly and that you saw maybe as a kid. Or something to get them sort of into Transformers, because maybe your kid's into animals. Because, like I said, Gen 1 Transformers, from what I remember, they did have some. If you count dinosaurs as animals, which I'm going to, and bugs, they had some animal Transformers, but they were still very blocky and very robots into animal shapes versus something that was, this is more like they have an animal form. And I think that'd be something good for like kids to get into Transformers, maybe. Like if they didn't like Gen 1 Transformers, because that's 80s and some of that stuff doesn't age well. I think it's a good starting point. And like I said, you know, this video, just so I know, that is not for children, but I feel very strongly that, like my dad, we need to share things we love with others, and especially our kids, because it's the only way these hobbies are going to grow. And if nothing else, it shows your kid, it encourages your kid that whatever they're into, enjoy it. Like I was lucky, I got into the nerdy stuff my dad did, because when you're a kid, you do kind of idolize your parents. But, you know, just, it's something to share with them and encourage them that whatever their passions are, pursue them. Don't be afraid to share it. Anyway, guys, this is my first video vlog. This is my first vlog for, well, technically not my first vlog, because I filmed some stuff that you guys will see down the road, because I couldn't wait. But it's going to be released later. It's my first time doing a review of a television series and then trying to do a video about it. Like I said, I wrote down a review, which I encourage you to go to the WordPress and read, because that helps us out. And then, you know, follow us on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter. So leave me some feedback. Like if you didn't like how this went, let me know what was wrong with it. If you didn't like the interview, you know, throw me some stuff. You know, try to be kind about it. I'm not, you know, an award-winning writer by anybody. I'm just a nerd that's trying to share his passions with people. But I really want some feedback to make these videos better. I'm trying to work on the lighting thing and not make it as blown out. I'm planning to, you know, order some light covers to help with that. But just leave me some feedback. Or let me know, hey man, if there's something else that you remember from the 90s, you're like, this is fun, you know, watch your language. This was really great. This was really, really great. You should go see it and put it in my messages. I can't swear we'll get to it because it depends on what it'll cost to get it, if I have to buy it, or if I can find it, you know, legally online to watch. But, you know, share your passions with me, guys, and I'll let you go because I feel like this video has been going on forever. So, I'll cut it here. Thank you guys for spending your day with me, and I'll catch you later. Peace.